for warwear.com.
Hello, how are you? I am super excited to be joining you on another Wednesday affair with praise for where I'm super excited, and I say thank you very much for joining me as usual. You know how we do it on this show. I thank you for your feedback from the previous sessions we've done, and please kindly tell your friends, families, invite them for this program every Wednesday. Today, we get on another journey. I'm going to be dealing with five marital truths no one ever told you. And I must warn that this might be a bit longer. I'm not going to rush it because this is one of the critical issues that a lot of us are dealing with. Now, in my years of working and consulting for families across different cultures of the world, 24 years right now, I have discovered that quite a number of issues could have been prevented if the proper premarital session was done or if people knew what they should avoid in a relationship. Unfortunately, not many people, have access to the right information. Now, the first thing I'm going to try to do is to use a verse of the Proverbs as chronicled by King Solomon of ancient Israel. And it said, that any enterprise is built by wise planning, and that would include your marriage. It said any enterprise is built by wise planning. It becomes strong through common sense, and it profits wonderfully by keeping abreast of the facts. So, three things in there. If you want to build a marriage, if you want to build a relationship, the first thing is wise planning, wise planning, wise planning. And a lot of people plan for wedding, they never plan for marriage. So, wise planning. It becomes strong through common sense. And like we say, that common sense is never common because, part of common sense is that you don't insist on your rights. You do what is right for you to keep a relationship. Now, as simple as what I've just said may sound, it's a reason why a lot of marriages collapse. Then it says it profits wonderfully by keeping abreast of the fact. That if you don't understand facts, if you don't understand latest facts, because there is nothing as damaging to an old error, to an old truth, to an old error there is nothing as damaging to a new truth like an old error, says a wise man. And so what it means is that there are things that have outdated or outlived their usefulness, which used to be truth many years ago, but can no longer pass the test of time because things have changed and seasons have changed. Now, when it comes to the things that nobody may have told you, you need to first understand that one of the greatest threats to building an effective marriage is the dirt of singleness. That a whole lot of us, have not been happy singles. They want to be happy married people. Now, it's never going to work because marriage is neither good nor bad. Marriage only reflects, the reality of the people who are involved. It reflects your identity, it reflects your worldview, it reflects your application of the wisdom or the knowledge that you have. And so when you have nothing outside of the idea of getting married, outside of the idea of getting married to a person, you will find out that by the time the person you have an idea of begins to manifest the reality, you'll begin to wonder, how did I find myself here? And so there are a couple of fundamental truths before I start delving into, some of the reasons, some of the five things you need to know. Now, the ultimate stage in life is singleness. Never forget that. You were born single, you're likely going to die single. Even when you're married, you're still going to be single because the lack of singleness is why couples choke themselves, because one person does not have a support system, then feels that, oh, this other person, my life must revolve around you, we must go everywhere together. And so there is no gap, there is no space, there is nothing you bring into the table from your own friends outside of what this person is all about. And so when the person wants to hang out with his friends or her friends, you begin to have a problem. And that is where insecurity stems from, to say that I possess you, I own you, so I must see you all the time. Now, number two, the crisis of marriage is often the dirt of singleness. I mentioned that when two people are properly single, who are independent, come together, they become interdependent because they are whole in themselves, and so they can stand the test of time even when they're not together. When singleness is not deciphered, aloneness will be traded for loneliness. So the purpose of marriage is not to cure your loneliness. If you are lonely, you need to deal with that. And a lot of religious people will often quote the scriptures that it's not good for the man to be alone. The word alone is not the same word as loneliness. Alone means all one, right? That it's not good for someone to be independent by himself when he can actually be interdependent, especially when you have what you can give to other people. Now, God's plan is for you to find and maximize you, and until you fully accept you, you will define your essence by your current reality and on the prize yourself. You are not your pain, you're not your trauma, you are not some of the things you have been through. You need to understand that you are not, the challenges that you're dealing with. You're not the trauma that you've gone through. You are not any of those. You are not even your degree. You're not your bank account, right? And so you need to understand that your ultimate significant order is the reality of who you are. And so based on your ideology of who you truly are, it should govern how you carry yourself, because a lot of us, we shrink ourselves to the level of the pain that we are dealing with. Now, so you realize that we now begin to undervalue and underprice ourselves, that we just want just anybody to be our husband, even when we know the person does not have the capacity to lead, or someone else to be your wife, when you know that person doesn't understand what it means to be a wife. Now, every misbehavior is either a non-discovery of self or a non-remembrance of self. That when you can't find yourself and figure yourself out, you are going to undervalue yourself. You are going to likely misbehave. So when you forget who you are, you will mess up. If you don't know who you are, you're going to mess up. So when couples haven't passed the test of singleness, they will exert too much pressure on each other and may ultimately damage themselves. I've worked with a lot of people, and you will hear things like, Praise, I need a break. I need a break. Why is she saying I need a break? Because someone is exerting so much pressure on the other person. Where are you? Are you there? Are you here? Are you this? Are you that? And so the person doesn't have a breathing space. When you see another person with a person, you begin to shoot images that never exist, because you are perpetually afraid that they're going to steal your husband or they're going to steal your wife away from you. But let me say to you that your singleness is a blessing. Maximizing it is your gratitude to God. So when I tell single people that, you see, your preoccupation should not be who do I marry, who do I marry. That is very important. Your preoccupation should be finding joy, finding fulfillment in your singleness and maximizing your life. So I want to ask you, for those of you who are not married, if you drop dead today, will they be written about you that with gratitude to God for a life well spent? Who are you adding value to? Who are you affecting? What is your significance to humanity? What is your usefulness to your society, to your community, to your to the social groups you belong to? What exactly, what kind of sister, brother, what kind of friend are you to the people that you relate with? So if you ostracize yourself and move yourself totally away, and then all of a sudden you want to get married, you're going to have a problem, and it's not going to all go well for you, because you have not been tested in the crucible of friendship. I always say to people that friendship is the crucible in which great relationships are forged. So singleness, I have defined as a state of discovering the very core essence of your life, which means your uniqueness, and accepting you without apologies. And that includes embracing your shame. We've all got things we're not proud of. We've got things that people will tag as shameful. It's part of your growth process. Embrace it, right? As a matter of fact, many of the things we are ashamed of are the things that give us a lot of pleasure. And so you are wasting that pleasure by pretending not to know that you actually derive a lot of pleasure from it. Yes, it may not be right, but then you can't undo it. And so you have told yourself you're not going to do it anymore. But then don't deprive yourself of the pleasure that you feel by now condemning yourself, because many of us live in self-condemnation, putting ourselves down unnecessarily for doing what human beings will do, that we are supposed to snap out of, bounce back from, and move on with our lives. So singleness is the state of discovering the very essence of your life. That talks about your uniqueness, accepting it without apologies, and that includes embracing your shame and then keeping your focus until a state of wholeness is attained in you in service to God and humanity. And so this definition is so profound. And what it's saying literally is, if you don't exist, don't get married. If you have not deciphered yourself, what makes you think, what you love, what you don't love, your deal breakers, your purpose, your values, your attributes, the value you bring to the table. If you have not answered those questions, then you've not really started living as a proper single. And that's why marriage is never going to make you happy if you were never a happy single person. And so, one of the greatest damage done to our world is the fact that many have lost their authenticity through trauma before they show up in marriage. And I sit with a lot of people who get married. I mean, in August this year, I'm going to be taking people who are relocating to North America and Europe from Africa, and then people who are intend to get married through an 8-week premarital system. Because if your marriage is not built on a system, it's going to struggle in the developed world, right? And so many of us, we've lost our authentic self. I mean, when I run personality analysis, many people are showing up with a pseudo personality, which is the false personality, right? And it's not because they are not even aware that their real identity has been suppressed by their parents, by the environment they grew up in, or by the trauma they've been through. Some of the significant emotional experience have totally messed them up, but they are not aware. And so they want to get married genuinely the way everyone wants to get married. But there is this anger or rage issue they are yet to deal with. They want to get married the way everyone wants to get married. But then there is this trauma or grief that they have, avoided, and they've never confronted. They want to get married like everybody. But then there is this betrayal that they have had to go through in their childhood that they've not overcome. And so when you have not dealt with your trauma, even if you marry an angel, the angel is going to look like a demon to you because your screen is cracked. And so you are seeing people through the lens of your pain. Now, there are 3 reasons why people lose themselves, in case you do not know. I'm sure you are excited about, you want to know the 5 things that people need to know, right? But then you need to first understand that you can lose yourself if you have been wrongly handled, right? I mean, one of the critical ways people lose themselves is the firstborn syndrome, or violence upbringing induced by, forced behavioral conditioning. If you grew up under a father who expected you to act in a particular way without paying attention to your authenticity, right? And so you would realize that you can suffer from pseudo personality or firstborn syndrome. I don't know where many of the parents got the idea from that, the firstborn child must lead everyone, must not turn out right. And so you find out a lot of people are in that situation where they don't even know who they are anymore because they've been wrongly handled. I mean, if you grew up in a situation where male-female children are perceived as inferior to male children, it's not impossible that your personality has been suppressed. Number 2 is subjective culture and environment. How do we see boys? How do we see girls? How do we see the poor? How do we see the rich? These are critical issues that could suppress your authenticity. And then number 3 is significant emotional experience, void of healing and closure. When you have been raped, when you have been molested, when you have lost someone significant in your life, when you have gone from aunties to uncles, and then they've used you and totally messed you up, you may have lost yourself. At this juncture, if you have been through any of the things I've highlighted, maybe your parents were very, very hard on you, and then you had to pretend to dance to their tune so that they are happy. Or you have been a victim of rape, victim of domestic violence, victim of sexual violence, or you have been manipulated. There's someone authority figure in your life who couldn't stand your authenticity. So you were forced to pretend to be who you're not just to please the person. Or you grew up in an environment that does not respect you. If you are this person and you are listening to me, then you need to book for a closure or a healing session. Because if you run into marriage, with the betrayal mentality or with your trust issues, you are likely going to make a shipwreck of your relationship. Now, having said all of these things, I have realized that many people, have been deprived of their ability to enjoy their spouses because they do not know some of the critical things they need to deal with. Now, I empathize with you if you are going through pain, if you're going through trauma, but please, you need to face it and heal your trauma because the person that hurt you did not know better. If they knew better, they would act better. In fact, that the person gave you trauma is proof that trauma existed in the person. Because if what existed in the person was love, it is love that will flow out of them no matter the pressure they are under. Hurting people hurt other people. But you don't want to pass hurt to the lover or the person you're married to. And that's why you want to check in and get help. Now, today, I am just going to focus on one. Next week, I'll continue because our time is first spent. Now, the first thing no one ever is likely going to tell you is that opposite beings don't necessarily attract, only kinds easily bond. Haven't you heard the opposite attract concept? I mean, I know, and I respect him, Lai, and everyone who has written books on it. But you see, opposite things will attract. Opposite beings will attract initially, but if care is not taken, will repel. Am I saying if you marry your opposite, it's not going to work? No, it will work, but it requires a lot of work. In fact, you're going to work harder than if you had married your kind. In fact, the Holy Book talks about kind much more than opposite. If you read Genesis 1, the concept of creation, you will find out about kind. Even Genesis 2, when he was talking about this is now the bone of my bone, he didn't say my opposite, he said my kind, right? And so kind is the one that bonds. And if you don't still understand this, you see that opposite attract is like walk, kind is like grace, right? And so what happens in opposite attract is people hide under behavioral issues that they could have adjusted or they could have dealt with. For example, from the personality analysis chart, I know some of you use the Dix model, or some of you use the sanguine, the choleric, and the model, but I use the brand of car model, which I created many years ago. That you, in the concept of opposite attract, says that the choleric will usually attract, I think, the fleck, and then the sanguine is going to attract the male, right? And so from my brand of car perspective, you say that the Hummer will attract the intimidating Hummer will attract the dependable truck, right? So Hummer is project driven. So we expect him to attract someone who is people driven. The question is, why can't he develop capacity to handle people and projects? The person who is people driven naturally, why can't she develop the capacity to handle projects? Because we are assuming that these people, everyone is going to get married. If this person does not get married, how would he have maximized his life? Is the question we need to think about. So we assume that Homer, who has low attention span, should marry someone who has high attention span. So when Homer is in a meeting and the spouse is not there, how is he going to cope? Right? We assume that he's bullish, so he should marry someone who is warm. So how do we now handle the fact that his bullish nature is going to upset the person who is warm because he's going to continue to bully the person? Right? And so we say one person has fits of anger, you should marry someone who is patient and understanding. How well, how much, how long can the person who is patient warehouse this anger? Right? And so someone who makes quick decision, we expect them to marry slow decision. Extroverted should marry introvert, right? The only problem is that while the extrovert wants to talk all the time, the introvert wants to keep quiet all the time. And so he's going to be perceiving the other person as he talks too much, and this person is going to say, oh, you are not interested. We expect the blunt communicator to marry the diplomatic communicator. Yes, they admire themselves, but by the time they come together, you realize that someone is going to endure for the rest of their life. Now, if you flip the other personality, the sanguine versus the male, you expect a scattered person, in quote, to marry the highly organized person. So someone has to organize the house for the rest of her life. The question is, why can't the disorganized person figure out why he's been disorganized? Because disorganization is not a personality, it's not a person, right? It's a learned behavior, right? And so we expect the expressive person to marry the reserved person, the intuitive feelers to marry the sensory judges, the spontaneous person to marry the highly detailed person, people lover to marry systems, and people teach all these things. Marry your opposite, marry your opposite. Excuse me, marry your kind. Marry your kind. I say again, marry your kind. Because in opposite attract is work, in kind connect is grace. So you have a situation where I want to talk. Opposite attract says you talk too much. Kind says, bring it on, let's get on with it. I want to have sex. Opposite attract will tell you I'm not in the mood. Kind will tell you anytime, anyhow, anywhere. I want to take this risk. Opposite attract tells you it is better we maintain status quo. Kind will tell you what is the worst that can happen. I want to become more creative in bed. Opposite attract says, you want to turn me into someone on something else. Kind says, I love to explore and I don't mind trying new stuff with you. How do we parent? Opposite attract says, my way is the better way. Kind says, let's figure out the best way and embrace it together. Let's go party with friend. Opposite attract tells you, I don't like crowd. You know, kind says, I just want to be where you are. Right? So if you find your kind, you melt into your kind. Now, if you are married and you married an opposite, am I saying you're in trouble? Yes, but no. Right? What both of you can begin to do is to begin to look at the gray areas and ask yourself, how can we develop it? Let me tell you, no one is absolutely introverted and no one is absolutely extroverted. No. Everyone can grow. If you find your kind, you would suddenly realize that you could talk and be with them all day. And so, can we begin to check ourselves and be honest? What I found out, especially in the religious space, is that many religious people are never honest with themselves, never honest with their desires, because they don't know how the other person will react. How many people want oral sex who couldn't tell their spouse that they desire oral sex because they are afraid that this opposite is going to say, have you lost your mind? Have you lost your faith? Have you lost your soul? How many people can't take decisions? They are waiting for the other person to endorse analysis paralysis, and they have been waiting for 20 days or 3 months, and nothing has been done. And they are there just enduring. Now, I'm not saying go crash your marriage, but can you have conversation? Can you tell the spouse exactly how you feel and let them know that these are areas they can develop? I mean, I've helped people, develop the strength in the area of weakness that is affecting their marriage. So, if you're single, please don't run into marriage thinking you want to marry the opposite. Ask yourself, this deficiency I have in me, can I develop strength in it? What do I need to do to develop strength in it? Sometimes you just need to surround yourself with friends who have similar attributes, and just by associating with them, you develop strength. Other times it could be culture. Other times it could be, you just exerting the human ability you have to become whatever you want to be. And so don't let anyone hold you bound and let anyone make you feel bad, right? You can marry your kind. I mean, it becomes very disheartening when I see people who don't like sex marry someone whose libido is high. And so every year they're telling the person, you're going to have sex 4 times this year. And the other person is going crazy, is asking, can I masturbate? Can I watch porn? I'm going crazy in here. And I'm asking, why don't you marry someone who enjoys sex, who wants to be with you all the time, who is likely not going to say no at any point in time that both of you want it? And so when you see couples who are kindred, who look alike, who have similar values, similar worldview, similar temperament, you realize that decision making is faster and they achieve a lot more better, right? Because they are a kind. Friction is reduced. And even when there's a friction, they are willing to talk through every matter by themselves because they know we are all we have. So it's not a case of one person is quiet. And so this thing of, when this person says yes, they mean no. It never, it never happens in kind. It happens in opposite because you have to think, you have to study their body language. But in kind, hey, I'm not happy with you, dude. Oh, what did I do? Oh, that thing you did yesterday, I didn't like it. It really affected me. But I love you. Okay, so let's talk through it. That's the best way. You see, we don't have so long to live on this planet to now be sitting down and say, okay, she's saying go, but she means no. Why is she saying that? What is wrong with you? There is nothing. So we have to sit with you. And there is nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. But again, hey, why would you do that when you can actually avoid it and marry someone who is your kind? I know many people have missed it because they saw their kind and they ran away because there is a law in their head based on what they have read and what they've been told that, don't marry your kind, marry opposite. See, you want to enjoy marriage, marry your kind. So who is that kind that is around you as a single person that you're about to throw away simply because you think we are too similar, right? So I want my opposite, right? That similar person is actually what you might need. And for those of you already married, there is a similar side to the person you are in that is yet undeveloped. So in personality analysis, we say there is dominant personality, there is the complementary personality, there is a developing personality, and there is the undeveloped personality. If you focus on the developing and the undeveloped, you realize that they gain strength, and then what you thought was a weakness suddenly becomes strength. And I love the fact that even Tim Lai said that they are what he thought were mere descriptive, and it's to make you become aware so that you can develop strength in those areas. I hope this has been helpful. When next I come, I'll take number two, which talks about patterns, because that's another one that a whole lot of us have missed out on. Patterns are predictors of the future, hence background checks is key. I'll speak more to that next week, and I'll go into some further stuff. But then you might want to join me. I mean, I'm starting a coaching program for C-suite executives, singles who want to get married. Maybe you've been out of the game for a long time, or you're divorced, or you are a widow and you want to get back into the game. You need to understand that your reality has changed. So if you want to get married anew, or you want to fall in love again and things like that, you want to join me, you can use my IG to send me a message, and then I will get you into that program. Or you can send me a mail, praise forward, praise my first name and my last name at gmail.com. It's not a free program, but trust me, it is totally transformational, and it will change your life, because after the coaching, you're going to get on a 10-week challenge of what to do every day to find the love of your life, right? And so I look forward to welcoming you to that program. Thank you so much for joining me today. I celebrate you, and please invite your friends, share this with them. Let me know what you think. Get on the comment box and let me know. Share this with your family and friends, right? I am the best that exists when it comes to family strategy across the globe. My name is Praise Forward, and I celebrate you. Have a fantastic evening.